So welcome to my video of climbing Snowmass Mountain. This video is going to be a little different from my other 14er videos since it contains footage from two separate attempts to climb the peak, the second one successful, the first unsuccessful. The first attempt was on June 26, 2025 when I car camped at the trailhead the night beforehand and attempted the long climb in a single day. On that occasion, there was still plenty of snow in the namesake snowfield high on the mountain's east slopes, but by the time I completed the very long hike and climb to reach it, the snow had become too softened in the late morning sun to afford enough traction and support, making any progress very slow, exhausting, and replete with post-holing and hitting my crampon spikes on the underlying rocks. Given these things, and also the long stretch of the snowfield still to ascend, my dwindling water situation, not to mention how tired I already was, reluctantly I made the decision to turn back somewhere on the snowfield's lower reaches and make the long trek back to the trailhead. I knew the mountain would still be there for a future try at it, but I wanted to make sure I was too. Having experienced just how long, exhausting, and time-consuming this route is even without making it all the way up, I decided that I would make another go at it as an overnight backpack scenario, and that same evening I booked my camping permit for Snowmass Lake in late September, when the slope was likely to hold little to no snow. I have included pictures and footage from both occasions because some key points and stretches are shown better on one occasion than on the other, and also to show the difference in the snow conditions between early and late season. Plus, I didn't want to omit some good images from the presentation or to leave out the chance to see some of the seasonal variations in the scenery. Where applicable, I have indicated which occasion is being shown and at what time of day. Given its prominence and its eye-catching snowfield, the peak had been known as a landmark for some time before it was approached and surveyed, to which this photo, taken from Mount Massive 32 miles to the east, can attest, and also shows typical snow coverage in mid-June. The two proximate summits of the mountain had been called the Twins by miners in the region before the surveyors arrived. When the Hayden Survey explored and mapped the Elk Range in 1873 and 1874, initially it tentatively reckoned the mountain by a number of names. Among these were White Bison, White House, and Snowmass, with the last, of course, being finally settled on. The name White House was in keeping with an initiative to name the Elk Mountains after government departments, of which neighboring Capitol Peak is the most notable enduring instance. Members of the survey made the first known ascent of the peak in August of 1873 by way of a route that approached from the south, which was the first known ascent of any Elk Range 14er. The closer view of the mountain shown here was taken from Castle Peak to the southeast, while this even closer view from the southeast is from Maroon Peak, both showing the typical dry conditions of the snowfield in late August and early September. However, snow conditions can also significantly vary year to year, as illustrated by these shots of the mountain from the same angle, both in late July, this one from Pyramid Peak, and this one from North Maroon the very next year. So definitely check the status of the snowfield before embarking. This picture was taken from Capitol Peak just to the north, while these show the mountain from the approach hike to the northeast, this one in late June, and this one in late September, with the actual summit on the left. Here it can be seen from Snowmass Lake to the immediate east, again first in June, and here in September, with the summit being the distant hump on the left. As the Colorado 14ers go, Snowmass Mountain is quite a difficult mountain to climb by way of the standard route, and perhaps historically underrated in that regard. At the end, I'll try to provide some objective comparative assessment of how difficult. Although the route does present Class 3 climbing on the final stretches, I don't say this because of any particularly memorable challenges in that regard. I say it because of the sum totality of difficulties consisting of the endurance stats, the climbing challenges, the logistics, and the numerous idiosyncratic entanglements of the route finding. To use a morbid comparison to describe the painful aspect in the pleasure-pain relationship that many refer to when it comes to mountain climbing, I might say the route is like death by 1,000 paper cuts. First, if you opt for the overnight backpack scenario, that will of course involve all the requisite camping equipment, provisions, and procedures. But regardless, the endurance stats, as I said, are pretty staggering. Actually, I think this is the greatest total distance I've ever put in on a 14er climb. If you're attempting the route with extensive snow cover in the Snowmass, you'll of course need to carry along and change into and out of the requisite snow hiking gear. The next so-called paper cut to mention is a log jam, which you reach after 6 miles of the lower approach hike, and which affords a sort of tricky passage across Snowmass Creek. There are camping areas on the creek's east side in this area if you opt not to go all the way to Snowmass Lake to camp. Next, once you get to the lake itself after 8+ miles, there is the rather confusing, quaggy and bushwhacky passage around the lake's south side. Then after ascending Tawas and Scree, you have to locate the elusive point at which to cross a steep stream gully only to ascend a brutally steep stretch through more dense foliage. Then having arrived at the Snowmass near 12,300 feet, be ready for 1,400 feet of vertical gain either through the snow with traction and ice axe, or up dry rock slabs and talus. When the snow field contains expansive and supportive snow, it is an easier and more pleasant stretch, especially since you can glissade down much of it on the return. The snow can provide favorable climbing, usually up through roughly late June. Finally, the last laceration to the psyche is the Class 3 ridge climb to the summit. And remember, all this is just to ascend. But anyway, joking about 1,000 paper cuts aside, as the pleasing side of the duality has it, this was an amazing and memorable adventure, the Colorado mountain experience in its quintessential and fullest sense. Do keep in mind that as of this video, there is a permit system in place for camping near Snowmass Lake, so if applicable to your plans, be sure to make the necessary arrangements beforehand. So without further ado, enjoy the trip. Driving down the Snowmass Creek Road, just a bit back there, I turned left at the intersection of Snowmass Creek Road and Capitol Creek Road. After exiting off of Highway 82, 20 some miles south of Glenwood, my understanding is you go about 11 miles total on this road to get to the Snowmass Creek trailhead, and that at some point it turns to dirt ways up here. Definitely a pretty road. You can see some of the high terrain coming into view here. I'm about 7 miles in from the Highway 82 intersection, and now you can see the road has turned to dirt. It's pretty good now. See what I'm in for up ahead though. Okay, I'm about 10 miles in. I think I've only got less than 2 miles left. Now the road has gotten significantly rougher, as you can see, but it's not too terrible. Some potholes. Okay, so not long after crossing a bridge over the creek back there, you come to this junction, this T-junction, and my understanding is I want to turn right at this. Over 11 miles or so. It looks like I've finally gotten here to the parking area. Well, I got here to the trailhead about 5:40 p.m. Took a little over 2 hours to make it from Palisade to here. Really not too bad of a drive. Beginning here of the Snowmass Creek trailhead. I wanted to get an early start. I'm going to be hiking in the dark for quite some time this morning. I want to get an early start because it's a very, very long haul today. And the trail, the lower trail, does cross a bit of private property. So the trailhead is about 8,400 feet for this climb, which is lower than average, I'd say. And like I said, it's going to be a really long haul today. And probably, if I can make it there and back, it's going to be the most total distance I will have put in on a single mountain climb. About 22 miles, believe it or not. And about 5,800 feet in total elevation gain. The path starts off going in a roughly west direction, but soon veers into a south direction, and as I understand it, it follows alongside Snowmass Creek all the way up until you reach Snowmass Lake near 11,000 feet. But that's going to be a while from now. And I'll mention that in addition to the huge endurance stats for this climb up Snowmass Mountain, there's also some snow climbing up the famous Snowmass itself. And also, of course, Class 3 ridge scramble and climb to the very top once you get out of the snowfield. So this is going to have a little bit of everything today. Continuing to veer more southward on this lower approach hike. And kind of on a level stretch right now. I have gained here and there bits of moderate elevation, but as I understand it from looking at the topo maps, this approach hike does not gain very much elevation for the first several miles into this. So you can see a glimmer of light begin to appear off toward the east there, and I've also reached more open space here, views opening up. Like I said back there, I'm about a mile into this, so it puts me about 1/22 of the total distance for the day is done. So I am tearing it up, boy. Anyways, keep going. Going still through these fairly thick woods in a solidly basically south direction. Still pretty level, not gaining too much elevation. So I'm on the initial stretches of the Maroon Snowmass Trail on my way to ultimately attempt to climb Snowmass Mountain again. I left the trailhead around 4 p.m. With this heavy framed backpack, which I'm not used to, but since I failed at this back in June, I'm going to try it this way, and I'm hoping to make it these 8+ miles from the trailhead all the way to Snowmass Lake at about 11,000, which is about 2,700 feet in elevation gain, and hoping to get there with enough daylight left to set up camp and everything. in order to try to tackle the upper part of the mountain tomorrow morning. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to show you the initial part of the trail since it was pitch dark when I hiked it on the previous occasion in June. You can see off in the distance some of the really high terrain already, but long ways to go. Long ways to go. So I'm close to a mile into this, I believe, and you come up to this junction, Maroon Snowmass Trail straight ahead, West Snowmass Trail to the right. I want to stay straight ahead to head towards Snowmass Mountain and Snowmass Lake. This trail started off in a west direction from the trailhead, then veered more to the southwest, and now I'm heading more in a south direction, and that's the overall direction that this lower route is going to take pretty much all the way to Snowmass Lake, I believe. In this open area, again, when I was here in June, I think it was still too dark to really see this still. I want to say about the first half a mile of this trail gained some modest but steady elevation. Now I'm on more of this level stretch. A lot of this path, or at least some of it, is kind of sloppy right now, a little muddy. Not too bad though. Well, I've lost the sunshine, at least for the time being. And I just passed by a couple guys back there going the other way, and I think they climbed the mountain today. They must have. But they told me that they ended up camping below the lake by a couple miles. I think that he said just before the log jam there's some spaces. So if I arrive at that point and I don't think there's much daylight left, I may set up there. And we'll see. Still on this long stretch of southward path, which is relatively flat. Not gaining much elevation still. Really pretty though. Okay. Now, some elevation gain to speak of. Back to more level again. Now I'm back on the incline a little more steadily through here. Yeah, I've always felt like being in a thick aspen forest like this had a sort of enveloping quality to it, like almost like being indoors, only an outdoors indoors, if you will. You know, definitely now been picking up a little more serious elevation consistently now. So it's about 5:45 p.m. I've been at this an hour and 45 minutes roughly, and I'm about 4 miles into it. This is the first time I've taken this pack off. I'm trying to make good time. I'm up here getting the first actual sort of view up towards Snowmass Mountain itself up there. There is a lot of white up there. I don't know. See how that's going to affect the route, the upper route tomorrow. Hopefully not too adversely. I still don't know where I'm going to try to set up. I'm going to see how much farther I can get. Get maybe up to the log jam at least. I'm going to keep going here. As I often talk about, here we have the ominous inflection point of the day where the destination comes into view. Right here we are looking at Snowmass Mountain. That's the north side of the mountain, and the summit of it is actually this part right here, and the east face, the famous snowfield, Snowmass, is actually right, that one right there. And so get this waterfall here too. Still headed on a fairly steady incline, following that vista. As it continues to get darker in this forest, still some sunshine up high though, up there.
to close to 6 o'clock. The path is kind of leveled out again through here. Now, still weaving my way on this path southward in the proximity of the creek on stretches of moderate gain and a few more level stretches. Across a little bit of water here. Before too long, the next major thing I'm going to come to is the place where you finally cross over to the other side of the creek, which is known as the log jam. As I understand it, it's a pretty substantial crossing, so be looking for that to come up pretty soon. Still see some sunshine up there on those rocks. Hopefully I'll reach the log jam pretty soon. Shouldn't be too much farther. A little ways though, I think. The path's rocky through here now, so I continue along as I have been for quite a while in the south direction along the left side of the creek, the east side of the creek. So you can see that kind of ravine down there. And I'm going through these thick trees, sort of veering around these ponds, these marshy ponds in this meadow over here on the path. I've come more out into the open now. The path is veered back toward the creek, I believe, so that's good. Log jam should be coming up before too long, because I know it is situated along the slow portion of the creek that has those ponds that goes through the meadows. And they seem to have emerged from out of those woods. Here's a meadow and ponds again. I think up close up there, I believe, is a log jam. I'm getting fairly close to that, thank goodness. And it's pretty level through here, and has been alongside this marsh. I don't think there's going to be much more elevation gain or any before that log jam. Like I remember before, there's a network of paths that leads to a log jam. There's actually a few log jams, but there's only one that's optimal to cross, and I think it's this one right here. But I believe I'm going to opt to find a place to set up camp before I go across this, and I'll start here tomorrow morning as it's getting darker quicker, getting colder. I expect it to possibly go below freezing tonight, most likely. So I'm going to head back over here, find one of these clearings that I saw, and start setting up. Okay, coming from the path that way, there's a creek over there. So I noticed that if I step over to this side path, nice little area here, I think, to set up somewhere in here. Here's a fire pit. Not going to be using that though. Yeah. Maybe right here. Get things sorted out. So about 6:50 in the morning here on Thursday. You get about ready to get started with the second stretch of this journey, which hopefully will take me up to the top of the mountain this time. I got up about 6 to prepare the contents of the smaller backpack, which will be a lot nicer to carry instead of that big, huge frame backpack. But I wanted to wait until it got a little bit lighter to start, because for one thing, I don't want to cross that log jam in the dark. So anyways, I think I'm going to get started. See you on the trail. So you're looking at the log jam here. I'm hoping that these logs aren't too slick from the frost. I'm pretty sure it got down below freezing, or is below freezing, or thereabouts right now. So I'm not going to record this. You can look at the recording of crossing this from 3 months ago, but hopefully see you at the other side. Okay, so I made it across that, and yes, those logs were really slippery from the frost. So to be really careful, and my hands are oh so cold from having to touch them. But here is the path, the resumption on the path on the other side. So I've begun to climb my way up away from these ponds. So I got about 6 miles of the 11-mile one-way distance covered yesterday afternoon and evening. So I got about 5 miles from back there at the campsite and log jam, about 5 miles to reach the top of the mountain. Although the log jam is about 10-1, so I still got about roughly 4,000 more feet in elevation gain today. So, not to mention the altitude and the climbing challenges. So, a little less than half the distance, but most of the challenge. Still pretty cold out here. I'm looking forward to it warming up a little bit. Help a little bit to get moving, exerting myself. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so I've crossed the log jam, like I said, and yeah, definitely crossed the log jam right there, and not over here like I tried to do initially. Initially, the path sort of led me to here, because you can't see much when you're walking through these willows, but luckily I saw the better crossing and used that. So I'm on the other side here of the creek now. I think I've got another couple miles till I get up to the lake. As I'm still continuing past this large pond or small lake right here. Not too long after the log jam, come up to these switchbacks up the side of this. You see that network of ponds and interconnected streams down there that I just came from as I continue up these sweeping switchbacks. Kind of steep up this hillside here. The path seems to have resumed now to a long southward stretch again through the woods. Pretty soon, though, it should be veering back into a more west direction as I approach the lake, and as the route approaches the mountain itself. I think I should be pretty close to the lake here. I've reached a stream crossing here as I get closer to the lake. I'm still headed basically in a south direction. Like I said, I should be getting to the lake fairly soon. Steady incline on this stretch too. More idyllic late September scene here. Nice little clearing here. I have veered now toward the west again. So I get about 10,800 feet here. Reach this trail junction. Maroon Snowmass cutoff trail to the left. For now, I want to stay straight ahead on the actual Maroon Snowmass trail. There's that one. And this one. Just above that last trail junction, this is the scene. Pretty steep right here. Reach the lake. So before I continue here, I just wanted to do a quick overview of the route remaining. First, after I wrap around the south side of the lake, if I can find that path, I will reach the other shore over there, at which point you kind of ascend up this area here with some vegetation, and I understand you have to engage some of that talus and scree. And as you proceed up further, I think at some point you cross up over into that terrain to avoid most of that upper scree slope. And then once you get up there, you're almost to the Snowmass. And there's the Snowmass itself, and that's close to 12.3, I think. So I went up, followed the path up to the lake just for that brief photo op, but to get to the rest of the route, what you want to do is leave this path right here and cross these logs to the left over the outlet stream here. They're pretty stable, plenty of them. And here I am, Snowmass Lake, about 11,000 feet. And you're looking up at the remainder of this climb. It does look like some snow on the upper reaches. Hopefully it's avoidable or negotiable. The top right there. I think it looks doable. Well, it's about 8 in the morning now. I have reached the lake after about 3 hours and 50 minutes of hiking and a little over 8 miles. I've crossed, as you saw, to the other side of the lake. I'm on the south side of the lake, so now what I need to do is find the path that wraps around the south side of the lake. And I think perhaps this might be it right here. There's a path right there too, but check this one out here first. Well, there's a network of paths in this area, as you see, probably because there's so many campsites. Let's see here. Let's try this one. It looks like more of a main way than the others. Let's see what happens. So I went up that path right there like I said I was going to do, and I felt like it was taking me way too high above the lake. I don't think it's supposed to go that high, so I'm going to try this one. My understanding is you're not supposed to get all that high above the lake. It says you're supposed to go through some willows. Maybe this is it. Yeah, I seem to be on the right track now. And there's some mud along here. You have to negotiate. Kind of bushwhacky. Well, I'm gonna cross this small area of snow. Either go down there lower or that path up higher. See what's up on this one. And I did kind of make the same mistake again. After that last option, I had to find my way back down to this path. So the lake is over there, some distance to my right and down. When I was here in June, on the way toward the mountain, ended up taking a path more on the shore, which got me along the south side of the lake, but it was buggy and marshy, kind of annoying. And on the way back that day, I found a path more elevated on the return, but not too far above the lake. So I'm trying to find that again. And I've already come up some distance above it. I'm at this trail intersection. I'm wondering if I don't go that way, or rather this way. The lake is right over there. Maybe this is the path I want. I'm going to give this a shot for a minute. As you can probably tell, I gave up on that higher path. It just seemed to be leading me too far above the lake and too far away from it. So I'm back at the shore. I tell you, I don't know why that one path I was talking about is so elusive. Maybe I can find it on the way back again. I seem to have stumbled upon a fairly good stretch of path here. Yeah, this is pretty nice. So I'm thinking this might actually be the path I was talking about before, the optimum path, although as you can see, it's not without its quagmires even now. I have to cross this. It wasn't all that bad. So I retreated a bit upward from that quagmire down there closer to the lake and found this path up here. So I don't know anymore what's the optimum path and any of that. At this point, I'm just trying to find my way the easiest way I can to the other end of the lake. And it's gotten a bit easier now. Finally emerged from the side of the lake. That was really lame again. I know that's not the optimal way to go. But anyways, the next step is I gotta make my way through these damn willow bushes. I remember there being something of a path through these. And then after that, I'm gonna head up that talus slope you see up there. Anyway, trying to find my way through the bushes now, though. So there is some semblance of a path, although a lot of this is, particularly right back there, is flowing water and icy, and later today it's going to be even way muddier, I'm afraid. Okay. last part of that wasn't too bad. It looks like I'm emerging out of that crap. Here's the talus slope. Go up there and tackle that. It's going to get real now as far as steepness and ruggedness of the rocks. Yeah, this path along the lakeshore has been a quagmire and rather hard to follow, and the bugs have become pretty atrocious. So I actually can't wait to get the rest of the way around this damn lake. As beautiful as it is, I think I'm getting close to the other end. At this point, I'm just kind of bushwhacking and trying to get my way over to the bottom of the slope there. I haven't had to deal with this many willows since the Guanella Pass. Alright, well, here's maybe some semblance of a path. You know, damn, I hope I can find a better way through these things on the way back. Well, I'm done with that nasty path around the lake, at least in this direction. There's the lake. You have to cross this stream real quick, and then I'm hoping the path that leads up to that scree slope is fairly straightforward. After that mud and the bugs and those willow bushes, I might actually be okay with some scree. Imagine that. I've emerged out of those bushes and onto this pile of talus field here, and you can see appears to be cairned. I need to get over that way. I see another one in the distance, so I'm going to make my way across these sizable boulders. So I think you just proceed back through this foliage here. All right, yeah. So on this talus, I've just been kind of angling up and to the right and looking for the prevailing cairns. I'm still coming up out of the right side of this talus slope. So now to the right of the talus, I'm onto this rock, dirt-ish path on the edge of it. A little bit smaller rocks. Tell you, this is a grueling stretch up this thing. Well, still trudging up this talus and dirt slope. Still got a ways to go on this thing, believe it or not. I think that's actually Snowmass Peak right there, which rises to a little over 13.6, I think. And you cannot currently see Snowmass Mountain itself. This talus slope is getting worse as I get up higher. It's getting probably steeper, looser. Some of the bigger rocks are even a little bit loose. So, trying to find what solid rock I can and get my way up that. Lake down there, what I've come up so far today. I feel like I'm doing pretty good. My energy's actually feels like it's doing really good, and clear out still. As long as weather holds up and the terrain isn't somehow too adverse farther up there, then I feel good about this. I'm still heading up this side of the talus. The next issue is going to be to find the location where you want to cross over the stream that's on this side, because farther up there you hit some steeper nasty scree that you don't want to have to negotiate. So yeah, I've heard I had an issue with that when I was here in June, and other people I talked to in person did, and I've read about issues with it that people have had issues. I've read about in the literature too, so definitely want to avoid that scree. Okay, I've moved over into this stream bed here. It's a little more stable than that scree. I'm going to make my way a little up further and then sort of veer right into that foliage. See how it goes. Well, after I went a little ways up that nasty scree slope, I decided that can't be the way, and I came back down. And what I'm going to try to do is just cross over right here and try to head into this little bit easier looking area. Well, I just talked to 3 guys back there, and they said they had problems on their way up in the morning on this stretch too, so I don't feel too bad now. But so they came from somewhere in here. I don't know if they were on a actual path or not, but I'm gonna try to make my way. I don't think I have too much farther to get to the top of this. So I think I finally found the path. Oh, hopefully I don't have to go through that crap on the way down. Man, this is still steep though. Now, you might see these beautiful flowers, but trust me, this is brutal. Oh, damn. Well, I think I finally reached, or am reaching, the end of that unrelenting, brutally steep slope back there. Looks like I gotta just make my way up this slightly less steep hill, and then pretty soon I'll be at the Snowmass. I climbed up that stream bed, kind of across some of those slabs. Now I'm over here in this kind of bushwhacky section, but at least it's better than that. So sort of head up through the rest of this. Remember from before, this section being steep as heck. So I kind of ended up crossing that vegetation and back over under this talus on the right side of it, and I kind of is ending up that, and it's fairly stable. Might meet up back up with that vegetated area right up there in a second, I think, though. And keep going. I think I found the optimal path from before. See, it's steep though. So I've gotten to the top of that last hill, and I'm up here finally, I think close to 12,300 feet, and pretty much at the Snowmass itself. The three guys I talked to back there said it was really soft, and looks like a fair amount of it's melted out, although looks like there's sufficient snow left in places you can use that most or all the way to the ridge. Anyway, I'm going to regroup and kind of get set up and then set off for that. I've started to climb this snow. That's the ground I've covered so far. I'm probably close to 12.5 or something, I don't know, but it is soft. I've post-holed a few times and it's melted out in spaces. Since I got these crampons on, I want to try to find a way to utilize the snow as best I can. It is really soft though, so I think I need to find my way in between these kind of islands of rock as best I can. See how far I can get with this. Already pretty exhausted. I've come up a line in the snow and then reached some rocks and then had to go across like I did right there until I got over to this line that I'm trying to go up right now, but my feet are sinking in pretty deep though, so see how much farther I can go.
So it was here at maybe about 12:06 or so that I decided to turn back on the first occasion for the reasons I mentioned at the beginning. Believe me, after all the effort I had made physically and logistically to get this far, I wanted to keep going, but I had to realize it just wasn't feasible on this occasion. And in retrospect, I'm of course glad I made this decision. So from this point, the footage will be exclusively from the second occasion.
So I've gotten out of that sort of nasty terrain back here, and I'm approaching the area, the vast area, which most of the year is covered in snow, known as the Snowmass. It's not going to have much snow today, so instead of that, I'm going to be looking for cairns and paths, and hopefully there'll be some of that. I don't know, we'll see how it goes. So far I'm noticing just a couple cairns and a path that is fairly faint. So I've been following what cairns I see. Not much path up here anymore. It's pretty understandable given that this is covered in snow most of the year. I seem to have gotten off to the left of this sort of rib here. I believe I'm going to want to ascend up toward the top of that. So my sense is to head over this way. So I came back up this rock rib type formation. Could have just gone directly up it that way from down there, but instead of veer around that way, came up, and I'm kind of on top of it now. Here's some cairns again, so maybe I'm on some semblance of the right path. I think I am anyways, because you know the general direction I need to be going, which for right now I believe is roughly straight ahead. And going up these slabs, sizable cairn right there. I'm kind of in a flattish area up here. I think I'm at about 13,000. So, 1,100 or so more vertical feet to go, I think. So, it's going to get pretty steep up here in a minute. So yeah, the climbing's gotten steeper, more bouldery. Looking for cairns. Here's one up there. I've kind of veered over to the left here. Well, don't want to continue over to the left. There's kind of a dip over there, so I'll try to head back up again. See what that gets me. Just kind of making my way up these slabs and rocks. There's a cairn right there. So hopefully I'm on some decent way. I'm not sure right here. You can either go through that sort of little chute there or check out the left. I might like this better. It seemed to work out. It's the next big cairn right there. This is sure grueling though. What now? That way or straight up this way? I don't see any reason not to just go straight up this way, so I'm gonna go for that. Some engaging little bouldering here. Seemed to work out all right. You're getting some patches of snow up here. Haven't been consequential yet. Left of this slab or right of it. I think I see a cairn on the left. I'll try it. And there's more of them up there. Seems to be an exercise in slab and boulder hopping. Kind of finding the path of least resistance and finding the next cairn. Seeing that next cairn in the distance, I think is helping me. The snow has become a little more consequential. Some places are wet and you avoid stepping in it. There's a summit right there, and there's that knob to its left. And I think here or pretty soon I'm going to start to veer up into the left and end up ascending over there and then reach the west side of the ridge for the final stretch. Tough, tough mountain. Keep going. Now snow presents more and more of an obstacle and a concern the higher I get here. Because for some reason I kept tending to get too far over to the right, so I had to kind of backtrack more leftward. There's a cairn right there. Looks like I see some over there. So maybe at this point kind of goes up there. This is actually pretty hazardous up here with the snow, with some of the looseness, wobbly boulders. Be careful. Okay, yeah. There's a nice line of cairns. Boy. I just come up from that direction. Now I'm kind of at this crossroads here. I don't believe I'm going to go over there. That's probably just going to cliff out. So probably need to go up or double back or double back and go up. Check it out. Hope I can find some markers up here. Looks like one right there. And this is some pretty rugged stuff. Actually bordering on class 3. After that pitch right back there, I think I'm still on the right path up here. There's something of a marker. Look at this precipitousness. Wow. I think that I can't go any farther that way, so I must have to double back up this way. Okay, there's a nice cairn right there. Try to head toward that. Okay. Looks like I've arrived at the ridge. Crap. Alright, I've reached the ridge crest, about 13,700 feet. Got about 400 more vertical feet to go. Looking at the summit right over there. My understanding is you climb kind of below the ridge crest on the left side of it. He's on the west side. Okay, move over to there. Alright, looks like I continue along the left side. There's some snow over here, as you see, but it doesn't seem to be as much or as consequential. Okay, so now first of all, look at these pointy rocks on this ridge here. Now this mountain is right next to Capitol, made out of basically the same rock. Now this little part of the ridge right here reminds me of Capitol, particularly they stretch on the ascent just after the knife edge, which is still a narrow ridge, still kind of knifey. But yeah, this kind of looks like that. Anyways, right here, I think I'm going to continue down on the left side. Okay, looks like path is even a little bit farther down here. Alright. Okay. Up right here. Yeah, okay, coming from that direction. And now, appears to get a little dicier. What I understand is perhaps it's actually easier higher, right, on this stretch. And then you stay a little bit higher and then get over to that rock over there to the right of the summit, lower than the summit, but to the right of it. And I think when you cross that, you then start to go up. But for now, I need to find a good way to get through this stretch. I mean, I see a path way down there, but I'm leery of that. See what I can accomplish going up a little higher. Yeah, I'm up here pretty high on it. What worries me about going down there is the possible difficulty of getting back up. I'm gonna go up here and see what that might have in store. Who knows, it could be easier passage than it looks. Yeah, nothing on that side. So I'm gonna have to drop below this oops, below this knob here. Kind of ledgy. Okay, so Seems to be as high as it'll allow me to be right now. So that's okay as long as I'm not too low. There's a cairn. Alright, now does it go up here or straight? I think it probably goes straight. I think that's just going to lead to, that's probably just going to cliff out up there. Alright, I think I'm doing pretty good. You know, I can't see around this corner, and I don't know what's up there, so let me step down here momentarily and just take a peek. Oh yeah. Okay, I'm heading toward that rock over there, like I said. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to get there. So, I want to aim for lower on it, I believe. There's a cairn down there. Might be able to just... Okay. We go over this. And that might be sketchy. And just drop down a little bit. Guess that won't hurt. Oh boy. Here's some decent faint section of the path here. Leading me to the rock. That rock. About where they ought to, I believe. Kind of annoying talus. At least prone to looseness. passage would have been easier below this cairn. It's okay though. Alright. So I can start kind of heading up this talus here. Oh shoot. Alright, looks like up this loose crap. I'll see how I can avoid that. It's a steep path right here too. Oh boy, nasty. Well, I guess this is just the kind of steep final gauntlet up this thing. Dang. This final stretch a little bit circuitous. All right. Look, okay. Up here. I'm sure these rocks are solid. That one isn't. Well, I think the top's right up there. See if I can figure out this final part. I might be kind of choosing my own adventure, but it's all right. Whew. There's this one rock here at the top. Wow. I'm just going to kneel on it. Wow. That was one hell of a mountain, let me tell you that. Absolutely one of the toughest mountains I've ever climbed. I'll have to reckon with exactly how tough in ensuing weeks, but wow, what an experience between everything involved. The logistics, the distance, the climbing challenges, the elevation gain, time. Damn. see I'm on that lower path that is a little farther below the ridge, leading away from that rock right there. And you continue down a little bit lower than, as you remember, kind of traverse near the ridge crest over in that section. The notch already.
Like straight down here, and then kind of around.
veering away from beneath these cliffs that you ascend up beneath on the way up. Angling down this way now. Snow is still an issue. Okay, so I think I might have finally discovered the initial sequence of cairns that I followed up this vast slope, but on the way down I did not follow that at all, especially on the upper part. I just winged it pretty much. That's alright. Still going down the Snowmass here though. So I've made it to this path through the willow bushes that's above the talus field, above the lower talus field, and it's still pretty muddy. I already slipped a couple times on it, so be careful. See? Well, I'm coming down the lower boulder field. I'll tell you, I'm not doing the greatest job on this descent. I crossed the stream up there, I think, too soon and ended up on a portion of scree slope. That was annoying as heck, and almost back down to the willow bushes, or getting there anyways. Just made it out of the willow bushes. They didn't seem to be as muddy this afternoon as they were this evening. So with this particular path intersection, I just discovered that that one is the optimal path above the lake I've been talking about, although today I took it back and it was really muddy, so optimal, I say loosely. On the return, going through the willow bushes below the lower talus slope seems to unseemly funnel you onto this. I don't know why, but yeah, so many things about this route that I still don't understand. Alright, it's about 10 minutes until 5 p.m. I just crossed back over the log jam, and I'm here at camp to tear things down, put them in the big backpack and haul everything 6 more miles back to the trailhead. So I'm gonna get started.
If ever there were, at least for me, a mountain climb describable more as a journey or really a story than just as a mountain climb, this would be a primary example. As I said at the beginning, I believe this was the longest total distance I've ever registered. I think it was also the most time I've ever put in as well, which isn't even counting the first unsuccessful try. On that occasion, my total trailhead to trailhead time was close to 13 hours. The second successful attempt saw my total hiking and climbing time over 2 days at about 15 hours, which includes the fumblings of documentation and time spent at the summit, but not the time to break down camp on the way back. Specifically, overall it took about 7 hours and 45 minutes on foot to reach the summit from the trailhead, with 5 of that to reach the summit from the long jam on the second day. By comparison, my round-trip time to climb Long's Peak was 8 hours and 20 minutes, and for Capitol Peak, close to 13 hours. Once I made it to the top on the second try, I realized there was almost certainly no way I would have made it all the way up if I had kept going on the first occasion, and that to try to do so might have greatly increased the chances of misfortune. As I said, that day I reached the snowfield much too late in the morning, something I could have and should have researched before I set out. which made it pretty clear that a one-day climb of the mountain when the snowfield has snow is especially tough and will probably mean setting out from the trailhead in the early AM hours and hiking for miles in the dark. A single day climb of the peak, if feasible at all, is much more doable after the snow mass is melted out. But even then, a very early start is advisable in keeping with the usual protocol of getting off the high terrain before the time window for the heightened risk of storms, not to mention before nightfall. And so, as someone who prefers to day climb 14ers, even I would highly recommend an overnight backpack scenario for this route, regardless of seasonal conditions. I found the most challenging climbing to be the final pitch leading to the summit and the talus just before reaching the ridge, with the latter perhaps also the most hazardous stretch, as on this occasion the snow on the rocks was too little to utilize, but too much to avoid. Fortunately, the final ridge climb held only negligible snow. The most tedious, confusing, and annoying stretch of the journey, which was also quite grueling, is definitely the stretch from the lake to the Snowmass. I don't think I went anything close to the same way any of the 4 times I passed through it. I suppose the surest way of getting around the lake is to just stick to the path along the shore, while I still don't know the optimal place, if there is one, to cross the upper stream gully. All I can really say is that the vegetated terrain to its right, as quaggy and bushwhacky as it is still much preferable, not to mention safer, than a steep scree that lurks higher on the left. One further note is, in retrospect, I'm kind of glad I had to camp at the log jam, because even if there had been enough daylight left, carrying that huge backpack for those additional 2 miles up to the lake on steepening terrain would have been pretty taxing. Finally, as a subjective total experience, considering the logistics and the time, the distance, the gain, the climbing challenges, and the fact that it took 2 tries and everything, this was definitely one of the hardest mountain climbs I've ever done, and perhaps the most involved experience I've had climbing a mountain. As for the objective assessment I promised earlier, that's a little harder to say. I guess when we think of ranking a route, we usually prioritize the glamours of dramatic climbing difficulty, but to me, there's definitely something to be said for death by 1,000 paper cuts. That being said, for now I'm putting this not necessarily first or second, but definitely in the top 5. But in any case, again, there is of course the pleasurable, illuminating side of the aforementioned duality, which this mountain, as much as any I've experienced, affords a thoroughgoing immersion. And really, we can admit to wanting both sides of the duality, for are they not truly one and the same? Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next mountain.